why is it being said that the wise man thinks of sense objects only by chance? Only by chance. Not by memory. Only by chance, not by memory, not a compulsive tendency to ponder. We do not think by chance. We are slaves to our compulsive tendencies to keep brooding. Yet thought is there. You are thinking about an event that is probably going to happen 6 months down the line. The chance has yet not occurred. The happening is yet distant, and no one knows whether the happening would occur at all. But you are constantly contemplating. It is not by chance, but by some kind of an inner compulsion. Slavery. Our mind is hostage to its latent tendencies, vritti. You come in front of me, then thought is activated, and that is all right. If you come in front of me, eyes have a look at you, then I must recollect your name at least. And to recollect your name, the apparatus will get functional. The mental apparatus will get functional, and that is called thought. Right? And a few things from memory are bound to arise, and that is all right. That is all right, because right now he has chanced. So it's okay. I take a fraction of a second and I say, oh, Rachit, you are here. And thought is there. Thought is serving its legitimate purpose. This thought is not a load upon the mind. This thought is an accompaniment of healthy, physical, worldly life. Because the body cannot exist without thought, and the mind cannot exist without thought. Because limited beings, by the fact that they are limited, need to be differentiated and have a name. If one is different from the other, then the otherness needs to be established by giving a name. So thought has to be there, and this is healthy thought. And remember, this thought does not constantly perpetuate itself. So I come to know that this is Rachit and his whereabouts and whatever. And then that's all. I don't need to think anymore. Now here is Rachit, the fact in front of me. Memory is no more needed. I don't need to recall his entire history. Now what is pertinent is, what is he saying to me? How does his face look? Is he sad? Am I able to relate to him? Now, these are the things that are important, and these are not the domain of thought. These are the domain of attention. If I'm still caught in thought, then I'll never able to know that he looks a little gloomy. Please pay attention. When he comes in front of me, I need thought. I need thought to recollect his name. I also need thought to figure out why he might be here, and a few other things. But that's all. What do I need after that? Do I need more thought, or do I need to pay attention to the living fact that is there in front of me? Now thought is unwanted. Now it is sufficient that we are there, this togetherness, this contact, thoughtless contact. If thought is altogether missing, then as physical, worldly beings, we cannot relate. Because As a body, I exist with a name, with an identity. So does he. So thought is needed to that extent. But if we exist just as identities, then we exist only as separation, and life will be hell. Because to the extent thought and name's identity exist, separation also exists. Then there can be no contact, no communion. Do you get this? Thought is separation. Thought means that there is me and the other needs to be thought of. When we started our discussion today, we said we are not one but two. And the second is a function of the first. Art of living lies in harmonizing the second so that it lives in accordance with the first, in submission to the first, in surrender to the first. So let thought come and let it quickly make way for attention. Let it not hang around. Have you seen when an important man is to arrive, his attendants come first and they ensure that things are properly laid out. Attendants are needed only till the time the dignitary has not arrived. Once he has come, then the attendants should vacate the area. If the attendants are still hanging around, then what will happen? They are an unnecessary impediment. Imagine the leader is speaking from the stage and the mic wala and the chai wala, they are all hanging around the stage, turning around. Now what will happen? Are they needed anymore? Is thought needed anymore? Thought is good only as long as it makes way for attention. That is good thought, which quickly subsides so that now there is only the vacant state, the vacant space in which understanding can take place. In fact, the sutra, if you read it carefully, makes it clear what should be the life of the thought. He indeed has his recollections of worldly life extinguished. He becomes void-minded spontaneously. So thought arises and then it should extinguish in no time. Spontaneously it should go away. Like a flash it comes and like a flash it goes. That should be the life of thought. It should not stay there. It should not become a compulsive state of mind. Who thinks of sense objects only by chance and who is, as it were, awake though physically asleep. Awake though physically asleep. What does it mean to be awake even when physically asleep? What is the meaning of being awake? Somebody has said, truth is stranger than fiction. Imagination can never be as surprising as truth can be. What is it to be awake? What is it that we usually call as being awake? We say we are awake when the world of senses is active, when we can feel, touch, hear, speak, see. Those who have understood life have said that this is clumsiness, drowsiness. That this is actually sleep. When the mind is dominated by clouds of thought, of sensual perception, that is what has been called as sleep. That has been called as sleep because truth cannot change. And whatever clouds the mind, whatever obfuscates it, constantly changes. So that cannot be truth. What we call as our normal awake state can simply not be true because our eyes and our ears bring us to nothing that does not change. And because we are a function of the world, if there is nothing unchangeable in the world, then there is nothing unchangeable in me as well. But that's a contradiction. Because there is someone who wants to know the truth. So there is somebody who is unchangeable. Even for a split second, he is there, unchanging. He wants to know. The next moment, he may want to know something else, but he still wants to know the truth. This moment, let's take a very crude example. This moment, I want to know what is X. I want to know the truth of X. Next moment, I may want to know what is Y. I want to know the truth of Y. There is something here that always wants to know the truth. And it doesn't change. It is always asking for the same thing, the truth. But whatever the eyes and the senses bring me from outside, it is constantly changing. So either my eyes and ears are deceiving me, or there is a substratum beneath the ever-changing which does not change. That foundation, that substratum, which is the basis of all that is changing, is the truth. The one who is drowsy, the one who is half asleep, lives believing the changing to be truth. The fleeting, the momentary, the impermanent to be truth. To be awake means to live in that which does not change. And that which does not change, that can be nothing. That has to be nothing. Because if it is something, then all things change. It has to be a void, an emptiness. To be awake means to live in a place that is free of all that the eyes can see and the ears can hear. That is to be awake. Do you understand this? To be awake means to be constantly living in contact with something that is free of this entire drama that is going on around us, within us. That is called awakening. So when you say I am awake because I am seeing objects, then you are actually asleep. The one who is really awake does not see objects. Now it does not mean that if there is a stone ahead of him, he won't see the stone. Obviously, the eyes will see that. But there is another faculty within him that is living in contact with something that is beyond the stone. Or you could say something that is the foundation of the stone. So real awakening means I am seeing nothing. It is a kind of sleep. It is a kind of deep relaxation. Real awakening means even when the eyes are seeing, I am not seeing anything. I am free of all that the eyes see and the ears hear. That is to be awake. Are you getting this? Now, our situation is such that we see objects in our so-called awake state, and we also see objects even when we are in our so-called asleep state. We are constantly dreaming. The intensity of dream may vary. But if you use equipment, you will come to see that even when you are sleeping, time is constantly active here. The proof of that is you wake up. The system knows enough of sleep, now wake up. So there is something within where the clock is ticking. And it knows 8 hours, 10 hours, at most 12 hours. Now wake up. So there is something within which knows enough of sleep. We are never sleeping actually. Objects are always there. Time is object, right? If time is there, objects are there. Time is there, world is there. So even when we are asleep, we are with objects. When we are awake, we are still with objects. But to be really awake means to be free of objects. We are never awake. We sleep when we sleep, and we sleep when we are awake. We sleep when we sleep because we are seeing objects. And even when we are awake, we are still seeing objects. So we are still truly asleep. Are you getting this? Ashtavakra here is saying, he is awake though physically asleep. It means that when he sleeps, he actually sleeps. when he sleeps, he actually sleeps. In a sense, he is sleeping even when he is awake. In what sense? In the sense that his eyes are seeing objects, but something within him is relaxing. It is not seeing anything. It is free. Sleeping, he is free. Not sleeping, he is still free. And because what you see in your sleep is nothing but what you have gathered when you are in your so-called awake state. So, to be free from objects in your sleep requires that you must be free from objects in your so-called awake state. You're getting this? When I am obsessed with objects in the daytime, obviously in the night, my dreams and my entire movement, the brain waves, will reflect that same obsession. In the daytime, I'm all the time thinking of money. What will happen in the night? I'll dream of money. I may not explicitly dream of money. I might dream of horses. But that's all the same. That dream is arising because I have been obsessed with something. Are you getting this? In the daytime, I am constantly occupied with the world. So in the night, there will be some mental activity going on related to the world. The wise man is free of the world in the daytime, so he is free of the world in the night as well. The wise man is free of the world in the day, and that is why he is free of the world in the night. The day comes first, remember. So do not try to start with your nights. That when I sleep, I must have a deep sleep. The night is in some way a reflection of the day. How you have spent your day decides how the night will go. So spend your day well. If you can be really awake in the day, then you would also be really awake in the night. Now you would also understand what Krishna means when he says, Ya Nisha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Sanyami. When the world sleeps, then the Sanyami, the real man, is awake. When the world sleeps, then the real man is awake. Do you understand this? When the world is seeing objects, he is situated at the center which is free of objects. This you that is the same in pain and pleasure is the number one, not number two.
But number two opted out as...
Number two tries to impersonate Atma. Body is trying to act like Atma. Atma will remain still. How can the body remain still? In heat and in cold, something within might remain untouched. But will the body not be affected? That is the... Both the writer and the audience, both have a responsibility to let it be made very clear. Sometimes even the writers think that to be remain in the same in the pain and pleasure means to be like dead wood. Furniture is the same. This door is the same in April and in December. Living beings are not supposed to be the same. But I'm seeing that tendency even sometimes within us also. That we think that to be spiritually advanced means to be dead. I won't laugh, I won't cry. I'm spiritual. I'll be like this. What bullshit. The spiritual man laughs louder than your ordinary man. The ordinary man doesn't know how to laugh. He only whimpers. He can giggle. The spiritual man roars. And the ordinary man can't even cry. His crying also has limits. The spiritual man will really break down. He won't cry. He will collapse, crying so much that he's really flooding. For the worldly man, everything is limited. Pain is limited, pleasure is limited. So life is limited. Everything is limits. Let's not dance too much. In other words, the worldly man is always a slave of his decency. The worldly man is a slave of his not too much. Oh my God. He cannot be fully indecent like Allah. He would always need some clothes. Alright, let's expose, but within limits. These are the contours. This is off limits. He can never be like Lalla. Full Monty. And that is the punishment of the worldly man. He can never go naked. Never. His decency will always be his punishment. Little bit, we are respectable. Oh my God. Respectability. Debt. The spiritual man is actually a very indecent man. He's almost like an animal. He knows no limits. When he is hungry, he will eat like an animal. I was reading Bhagavad Puran and it says the realized man is one who becomes Pashwat. Almost like an animal. Actually like an animal. He rises to the level of animals. If he has to eat, he will eat. And he doesn't mind what you are thinking. And if he doesn't have to eat, you do what you want to do. He won't eat. If he wants to mate, he will mate on the streets. Let everybody have a look what this dog is doing. Let everybody curse and call Mrs. Dog a bitch. But it doesn't matter. My time, my heat, my season, my partner, my playground. I know no decency. You go and hide in your bedrooms. Why should I hide? Have you ever seen a horse being polite? Kundan, have you ever seen a polite horse? Huh? Or a decent lion? Yes, Sushmita? Who doesn't want to hurt others? How can I be rough and rude? If I have to rebuke someone, I will rebuke offline. When the lion kills, he kills in full view of the jungle. He doesn't say that I will kill over phone, so that not everybody sees and this fellow may feel bad. Or decency is our punishment. But again, just as I had said, that no responsibility does not mean irresponsibility. Similarly, no decency does not mean indecency. No decency means beyond decency. No decency means an inner dignity. So Lalla is naked, but yet she is more dignified than your housewife. A naked Lalla is much more dignified than your housewife wrapped in 10 meters of cloth and 40 ornaments. Beyond decency. There is this beautiful story of a Buddhist monk. Have you heard of Nagar Vadhus? In the time of the Buddha, there was this prevalent concept. Nagar Vadhu. So, and this Nagar Vadhu was actually a prostitute, but a very famed prostitute, the head prostitute of the city. So she was a Nagar Vadhu, the mistress of the entire city, and only the rich and the most powerful would come to her. Acharya Chaturse it is who has written that Vaishali ki Nagar Vadhu, right? So, one of these Nagar Vadhus, she had been seeing the kings and the wealthy merchants and the other powerful and respectable people since long. And to be a Nagar Vadhu meant a lot of wealth and actually a lot of power also. It was a status symbol. And she was supposed to be intelligent and also incredibly beautiful and powerful. And she sees this Buddhist monk. And she seduces him. She expected to be resisted, because she had heard that the Buddha has gone beyond attraction and repulsion. So she expected that this fellow will resist my advances. He will not be trapped at all. But she is in for a surprise. He is trapped more easily than she could even imagine. He just walks into the trap. She seduces and he gets seduced without an iota of resistance. Yes, lady, what do you want from me? She says, live with me. He says, all right. Oh, surprise upon surprise. What kind of monk is this? He's agreeing to live with a prostitute. He says, I'll live with you. She thinks, probably this is a corrupt monk. Probably the Buddha couldn't teach him fully. Slowly she comes to see what it means to be a disciple of the Buddha. He lives with her. He experiences whatever is there to be experienced. And yet, because she is intelligent, she is able to figure out that something within him remains untouched even in their most intimate moments. She realizes that she had not trapped him. He was so sure of himself that he just walked into the trap. He knew that nothing could enslave him. It was a very deep-seated confidence. What can you do to me? Yes, come on, let's play. Let's play. Let me see what is the deepest seduction you can offer. Let me see what is the deepest pleasure that you have laid out. And let me see whether they are strong enough to corrupt my core. And nothing corrupted him. And he never boasted. He just stayed with her. Slowly she started realizing that this is no ordinary man. She started realizing that she has not won him over. She is being won over by him. And one day, he set off to go. He said, I'm going. She knew he couldn't be stopped. Now his time has come, he will go. And after he had gone, she wept. She remembered him. But she was an Agarvadhu and he was a monk. What could she do? A few months after he had gone, she realized that she was actually no more a prostitute. His very touch had permanently changed her. She had become the same that he was. Just as he was untouched, even during physical arousal, she was finding that the same is happening to her. In the middle of the world, she no longer belongs to the world. She saw that her time too has come. So when the king came to her next, she declared to the king that this palace that has been given to me is now going to be vacated. I am leaving. The king asked, where are you going? She said, I will no more be a Nagarvadhu. I'll stay with him. The king thought for a while. The king had been in love with her since long. Not only was she physically attractive, she was a very intelligent woman. So the king said that your life as a Nagarvadhu is ending now. You are beginning another life. She said yes. Then he said, then why not as my queen? Now that the Nagarvadhu is dying, passing away, why don't you begin your second life as my queen? She said, no, I have to go to her. Go to him. He said, but he's a monk. Just as he left you this time, he will leave you again. He is never going to marry you. You will never become his wife. No monk is ever going to take a wife. And her reply was worth remembering. She said, better his mistress than your wife. better his mistress than your wife. There is more dignity in being his mistress than there is in being your wife. That's lalla for you. There is more dignity in my nakedness than is there in all your saris and your ornaments. Often, mistresses are far more dignified than wives. Do you understand the difference between dignity and decency? To be a king's wife is a very decent affair. But to be a monk's mistress, whatever that means, monks don't have mistresses. Monks have friends. So that's a matter of words, don't get into that. But to be a monk's mistress is a far more dignified thing than to be a worldly man's wife. Some of us are obsessed with decency. To them, I implore, please get rid of your decency. Only when you get rid of your decency will you enter into the domain of dignity. That is the domain of Atma. The mind knows decency. Decency is social. Dignity is innate. All decency comes from society. A child is not born decent. Have you seen a decent child? A child is super indecent. Then you teach him decency. But dignity is a thing of the core. Learn dignity. Discover your dignity. And you cannot be parallelly decent and dignified. We are so obsessed with decency that we edit out the indecent portions of the lives of our great masters. We don't want to remember that Jesus used to walk with Mary Magdalene, who was a prostitute. We edit these things out because we are social beings. We don't see the dignified lady that she was. We are crushed under the weight of society, our own decency. We don't want to talk about Krishna's love affairs and the physical aspect thereof. We pretend as if, those were purely spiritual happenings occurring in some ethereal space, as if those things were never really happening in flesh and blood. We are talking of Lalla. Even when we portray Lalla, we portray her with her hair so long that they are covering her entire body. And that's the myth that is now, or that has been going around. That Lalla was actually never naked. Her hair was so long that they covered her entire body. So you wear garments made of sheep's hair. Lila was wearing garments made of her own hair. There is no great difference. She was within the purview of the society. How does it matter? Sheep's hair. Kashmir is a cold place. So, people are wearing woolen. Hair of sheep. Or hair of a woman. So it's alright. Decent enough. Outside Jain temples, if you see, there would often be hoardings that Munivar is coming to deliver a talk. Now the entire body of Munivar will be visible in the great photograph that will be put up. Except you know what. Decency has to be maintained. How can Munivar's all-important organs be put for public display? So that has to be edited out. Some dark paint has to be applied. Or something else has to be done so. And we forget the dignity of a Mahavir when he walks upright, truly naked. We forget that. In our concern for decency, we totally forget the dignity of Mahavir. Decency is taught. Dignity arises from within. That is the difference. And nobody can teach you dignity. No school, no education can give you dignity. It arises from the heart. An ancient tale has it that when the goddess of beauty dances, then the ornaments of all the women looking at her, they disappear from those women and they go to the goddess of beauty. The tale is significant, it has to be understood. It means that when the goddess of beauty, and the goddess of beauty is the goddess of dignity, when she arrives, then all your ornaments mean nothing. They disappear. With all your respectability and all your mannerisms and all your makeup and all your clothes, you are nothing in front of the goddess of dignity. And she has nothing. She has nothing. You have clothes from society, you have ornaments from society, you have etiquette from society. She has nothing. But when she arrives, then all your ornaments disappear. They don't mean anything. In her nakedness, in her austerity, in her ascetic-like appearance, she is still 1,000 times more beautiful than you. In fact, it is only because of her austerity and her staunch nakedness that she is beautiful. You are born beautiful. Society makes you ugly. Nobody is born ugly. And then you spend the entire life trying to regain your beauty.